Good afternoon, good evening to all delegates that are joining us today. My name is Betha Dlamini. I am the founding president of African Women in Energy and Power. We're very delighted to have you today. This is our second webinar this year, and we've got a number of webinars planned for you. Our mission is to accelerate the participation of women entrepreneurs in the energy and power sector in South Africa and in the region. We're very excited today that we have at least about 16 countries that have registered for the webinar. And I believe that at different times of the webinar, they will be joining us. I'm going to start my presentation. We've got Ms. Thowela Mukosa, who is helping us with our technical back end. Thowela, if you can please flight the stage and flight my presentation. Thank you. We have a lovely program designed, excuse me, for today. We have speakers from industry that will bring absolutely necessary insights on how you should navigate the energy and power sector if you wish to succeed as an entrepreneur. We have Ms. Nosizwe Zengezelem, who is joining us from General Electric. She will be speaking about the gas value chain, a very exciting topic. We also have Dr. Ellsworth Jonathan, who has extensive experience in utility supply chain management. And his particular presentation will be interesting today because he will be giving tips and insights on how you can navigate supply chain and ensure that you are competitive. We have Ms. Darishni Chowthi, who is joining us from Nedbank. You may know that Nedbank South Africa and its branches across the continent have been pioneering energy project financing, and she will be speaking specifically on how Nedbank is supporting women entrepreneurs in the energy and power sector. We've got Ms. Elizabeth Murabwa, who is from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. She is with us for the second time at this webinar, and we received positive feedback from delegates who attended in May, who enjoyed her presentation and found it very insightful, and she will be joining us today. First, I just want to give you some background into AWEaP and the purpose of our webinars. Next slide, please. We have been delivering this information sharing sessions. We also call them orientation sessions. These are sessions where we invite different stakeholders and players in the energy and power sector ecosystem who speak on the full value chain of energy and power. Our intention is to bring credible market information to our delegates that will help you identify your specific niche that you are interested in, or also to just identify how you start developing your energy business. We invite utilities in the electricity sector to speak about their strategies for the next 3 years, to speak about their focus areas. As you know, there is a huge revolution taking place in the utility space as they integrate renewable energy sources in their quest to diversify their energy mix. And therefore, we invite utilities to speak about such strategies so that in your area, in your market, you know how you can position yourself or organize yourself as a group of entrepreneurs in partnership or as an entrepreneur to pursue the opportunities that are coming out of utilities in the form of projects that emanate from their strategic direction. We also invite them to speak about their procurement policies and their procurement processes so that as you prepare your bids, you can increase your chances of achieving 100% compliance with the supply chain requirements. We also invite technology companies, so original equipment manufacturers and other specialists in the energy value chain, whether they are in energy generation, transmission, or distribution. We invite them to speak about technology that is in demand in the energy space or that is emerging in the energy space. We talk about the 3Ds: digitalization, decarbonization, and decentralization. And they speak about these technology trends, including their channel partner program, to give our delegates the opportunity to explore how you can become a channel partner to one of the leading technology companies. Most of the technology companies that we invite are established multinational technology companies with a footprint on the continent, and they are interested in incorporating women channel partners in their system. We invite finance houses, financing institutions, both from a private sector perspective and development finance institutions, to speak about financing instruments that they have and how to access those financing instruments for energy projects and for your own business as an entrepreneur in the energy space. They talk about how they qualify those who apply for financing at our webinars. We also invite entrepreneurs that are fairly established in the energy and power space to give testimonies on how they established their businesses, the challenges that they face, and how they address those challenges using support structures that exist in the sector. So our information sharing sessions afford you the opportunity to access credible market information, to empower you to best decide where to play in the energy and power sector. Our focus is largely in the electricity sector. Next slide, please. We have a network of chairpersons, country chairpersons, that cover 11 countries where we are currently active. We have Ms. Irene Kiwia, who is helping us and acting as a country chairperson for Tanzania. We have Ms. Laureen Adam, who is acting as a country chairperson for Zimbabwe. Ms. Sarah Bwaya, who is the country chairperson for Kenya. We have Dr. Constance Matsebula, who is the country chairperson for Swaziland. And yesterday, we had a very inspired information sharing session with women engineers in Eswatini. We have Ms. Nambula Kachumi, who is the founder of We Create in Zambia and also a country chairperson for AWEaP. We have Ms. Gertrude Namitala in Uganda, Ms. Sekhakweng Tsiane in Botswana, and we had a fascinating information sharing session on Friday in Botswana looking at renewable energy projects and how to access financing for renewable energy projects and how to partner with stakeholders in that ecosystem. We have myself acting as the country chairperson for South Africa. We have Ms. Lolo Mutsamai, who is the newly appointed country chairperson for Lesotho, and Ms. Estefania Dick, who is the country chairperson for Mozambique. Ms. Habib Ali, who is the country chairperson for Nigeria. And these are the country chairpersons that help us to bring credible market information in their various markets and also facilitate collaborative relationships with entrepreneurs in South Africa and entrepreneurs in their respective countries. Please, I encourage you to follow activities on our website to learn more of our initiatives. The next speaker is Ms. Elizabeth Murabwa, who is from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And I'm very proud to have Ms. Elizabeth with us. She also sits on the BRICS Women Business Alliance Energy Security portfolio, looking at how we can expand and extend access to market opportunities for women in energy. Ms. Elizabeth, you are welcome. Please take over.
Thank you very much, Betha, and greetings to all the delegates and the co-speakers on the program. It is a pleasure to be with you today and presenting on the opportunities in the energy sector for women in South Africa. Next. I'm going to just give you an overview of what we do, our legislation, which gives us the mandate to discuss about women in energy, the legislation and the constitution. I will not dwell much on them because you'll be able to go through that in your own time, as presentations will be put on our website and also the AWEaP website. The next, in terms of gender participation in the energy sector, I think that's a very important and critical point for women to participate. It has been established that globally, women participation in the energy sector actually enhances the productivity levels within the energy sector, and companies which have women as their directors, they are also much more successful compared to those companies that do not have women as leaders, as board members, and as executives. Studies have clearly demonstrated that benefit and inclusion of women generally increases our productivity globally in the world economy. So it is very important that you as women participate. There are different legislations that we have in South Africa which allows us to include women in the energy space. The constitution itself is very strategic and has empowered women. The UN has also indicated that we need to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Our own national development plan also includes the issue of gender and economic empowerment of women, of youth, and people with disabilities. The National Framework on Gender Responsive Planning and Budgeting, Monitoring and Evaluation and Auditing also empowers us as women to participate in the economy. And our own South African National Policy Framework for Gender Equality and Women Empowerment also give us the powers, and they provides the legislative mandate to enable you as women to participate in the energy sector and any other economy. As the Department of Energy, we further developed a women economic empowerment and gender equality policy, which was approved by the minister, and we are currently implementing it. And to give effect to that gender equality policy, we have developed a women empowerment and gender equality strategy together with an implementation plan. The minister has already approved that it will be launched sometime in August during the Women's Month. So we have the policy and the legislative framework to support your participation in the energy sector, and it is critical that you take advantage of that. Then in terms of the mandate of the department is we are regulating the energy sector. We also facilitate transformation in both minerals and energy sectors. So the mandate of the department allows you to ensure that you are empowered, and it's important that you take advantage of this opportunity and you include yourself and make sure that as a woman, you are not left behind. Next. Then in terms of the information that we have all our information on gender is available on the department website, www.dmre.gov.za. We also have a Women in Energy directory, where if you are new, you can join through that. We then give you the opportunities. If there's anything that is available, we will be able to give you such information. I've spoken about the gender strategy, which has been approved by the minister. We are currently in the process of requesting the minister to then nominate the Ministerial Advisory Council, which is women and even male champions that will be representing different energy sectors who will then be briefing Minister of Progress in terms of transformation from time to time. Once that is completed, we'll be informing you. The Minister will be informing you, and we will take the whole issue of transformation within the energy sector critical, and making sure that you are participating. Then what are the issues and challenges that are confronting women in the energy sector? I will, before we give you the actual opportunities, main challenges that are faced by women is access to information, particularly on procurement. We are aware that there are huge opportunities in procurement, but women do not have access to information. And we thank Betha for having this seminar series, because it allows women to access information on opportunities. The second most stumbling block or barrier is the issue of access to financial capital. And I'm very proud that this particular series is going to tell us on the different financial mechanisms that are available, and the opportunities and institutions that are willing to assist you. We have lots of opportunities now in the energy sector, and funding is very critical and strategic. We also talk about enterprise development, where we facilitate and discuss with different stakeholders to create programs that will assist women in closing the gaps in their enterprise development within the energy space. Then there are issues of market analysis and market competitiveness and pricing. We have realized that when women participate in different energy projects, they price themselves out of the market. In other words, when you are participating in a bid, your pricing is such that you actually eliminate yourself from the market. So it is very important that when you are participating in any bid, in any project, you must make sure that you do a price analysis and you set a competitive price that will enable you to participate in whatever endeavor you are following. It's just like in the IPP program. If your unit cost is too high, you are going to lose out. And in most other energy projects, it's the same. Then other important information that I've also picked up is that when women are participating in tenders, we have the feeling that because I am a woman, I am supposed to charge anything that I want. If I submit incomplete information, they must be in a position to accept my application. It doesn't work. We are regulated by National Treasury. There are procurement regulations. If you don't even submit a document, you get disqualified. So when we are preparing to be part of any tender process, please make sure that you submit your information, you make sure that it's all in order and it's on time as well. If you are late by 1 minute, you are out of the game. So in a nutshell, please make sure that when you submit your bids, they are comprehensive, and use credible people as to submit their CVs on your bids next. So those are some of the few challenges. What are the opportunities that we have in the energy sector? Now, I think we have been talking about this small-scale embedded generation. It's a new thing, not really a new thing, but the department has approved the small-scale embedded generation. You are just given a register and a license by NESA. The requirements are not very rigorous, and anyone can do it. And what is very important is that we now take advantage of those that particular small-scale embedded generation opportunity, because it allows you to generate a small amount of electricity that you can sell to a municipality, you can sell to an estate, you can sell to the like our shopping centers. The demand for energy right now is quite high. We see that ESCOM is facing some challenges, and because of that, you need businesses to continue operating most of the time, and small-scale embedded generators can step in the gap and assist, and that is an opportunity that has been opened by the minister. It is not complicated. It's easy to participate in. We have indicated before that the minister wanted to increase the small-scale embedded generation to up to 10 megawatts. But this, we have had an announcement from the president that instead of increasing it to 10 megawatts, it has now been increased to 100 megawatts. So that increase is quite significant, and it provides huge opportunities, and women need to align themselves now to make sure that we take advantage of this window of opportunity. Renewable energy is basically very new in the world, and in South Africa and in Africa in particular. We need energy, and it's very it is doable. And we have, if you go through our presentations as the department, we also even have developers who are on standby to assist you. So I can only say, walala wasal, you need to take this opportunity and take it seriously. Currently we have 1 megawatt, but we can now go as far as 100 megawatts. In terms of the implementation of that, from 1 to 100 megawatt, the department will be working on the requirements, and they will be releasing the information. So let's wait patiently, but let's now start to prepare to take advantage of this huge market opportunity that has been opened by the department and by the South African government. Next. Another, so in terms of how to register for the small scale embedded generation, your application for registration must be done by the owner operator of the generation facility, and by filling an application form. When you submit your application form, you need to have a consent letter from the licensed network service provider. You need to have a power purchase agreement between yourself as a generator and the consumer of your electricity. And as I've indicated, municipalities can buy from you, energy intensive users can buy from you, shopping malls can buy from you, estates, I think they can also buy from you. Then you also need a willing agreement with the network service provider if applicable. And once you have, you then take your proof or your documentation with a once-off 200 rands registration fee to the NESA, and NESA will then assist you. At present, we have 257 small-scale embedded generators projects, which are having a total capacity of 124 megawatts. So you can actually see this is happening, and you should really take advantage of these opportunities. The process is not complicated, it's not expensive. Once you have done your homework, it's possible for you to join this big emerging market. We also have opportunities in the National Integrated Electrification Program. What we have done is the Integrated Electrification Program spends approximately 5 billion every year on the electrification. We have agreed with my colleagues in the AWEaP, which is the short term for Integrated National Electrification Program, to set aside 30% of that for women and youth and people with disabilities. What you need to do is to go through the National Treasury to see which municipalities have been allocated funds. ESCOM has also been allocated funds. Once you go through that documentation, you can then now check the websites of those municipalities, and then it will be able to the websites will tell you when they are advertising. So the National Treasury published the Division of Revenue Bill with all the municipalities that have received the allocated funding, and it's you can check on I think it's page 263, 262 and 274. It then gives you a list of all the contracted municipalities. What you do is any municipality that is closer to you, you go on their website, you start to monitor when they are going to advertise, or just walk in and ask them, when are you going to advertise? I want to participate. Then you prepare your projects. For those that have not done it before, it's important for you to go on the previous websites. They have those documents already there. You check them, then you start to prepare your own project and ensure that you, once they advertise, you are ready and you don't miss the opportunity. So we, as DMRE, has already entered into agreements with the municipalities and ESCOM that they must have what we call, it's more like a set aside for women, and we will be monitoring that that set aside is indeed implemented accordingly. So we do not want an embarrassment where municipalities and ESCOM will say, a department and you, Elizabeth, we have set aside this, but we don't have any women applying to participate in the projects. So there is an opportunity for you. It's now up for grabs, and please don't embarrass us by not taking advantage of the opportunity. I have already indicated that it's just below 4.8, it's just below 5 billion, it's 4.8 in particular. And the jobs that they are offering, you are contracting to conduct electrification. You are also, they contract on design for electrification projects. They are also looking for suppliers of poles and other electrical material. They subcontract for main construction of the AWEaP projects. So the opportunities are huge. Construction companies will have opportunities. Electrification, electrical companies will have opportunities. People that are in the buying and selling, they will also have opportunities. So let's not make excuses. Government is providing opportunities for you. Please take advantage of that. Then we also have the IPP office. It is already launched around window 5, where they are actually going to procure 6,800 megawatts. The opportunities available. In order for you to access the documentation, you need to pay 25,000 rands. Once you get that, you have a registration with the IPP office, and you can participate. It's still open. Please also take advantage of that. We have had many presentations from the IPP office on how you do it, how you participate in the REAP program. So it's open now, and please take advantage of it. We have been talking about this. We now want to, after the bid window is closed, to learn that some of you have already bidded for those projects and are going to be successful IPP operators. Besides having your own IPP, you can also wait for those companies that are going to be awarded these big projects. And if you are in the construction, you can then apply for construction work. If you are an operator, you can apply for operations work. If you are in the maintenance, you can then provide maintenance services to the IPPs under construction, and including those that are operating. They do advertise the opportunities. So you have a lot of, besides being an IPP, opportunities where you can participate. So we are encouraging all women in the construction sector who are not keen on having their own independent IPPs to then provide support services that can also generate a good income for your company and a record, so that you can become a construction company on IPPs throughout the rest of the continent. Then you also have other, smaller opportunities like your cleaning, logistics, management, vegetation management. So all those projects and information on the IPP is available on the following websites. Then in conclusion, I just want to indicate that the women empowerment is taken seriously by the South African government, by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. We are here to support you. We are here to provide opportunities for you, and we are happy to be working together with Betha in making sure that we make all information available to you. And I encourage you to register on the database, so that if there are any opportunities available, we will be in sharing with you. And we acknowledge and appreciate the strategic partnership that we are having with our female leaders, such as Betha, who is working throughout the energy space in different capacities, and giving this information to you. I think with that, I really thank you. Any more information, we have provided you with the information, and my contact details are there. I wish you a very fruitful discussion, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Sis Elizabeth. Every time I listen to your presentation, I'm thoroughly inspired by the opportunities that exist in the energy and power space. We've got a number of questions that I would like us to address. The one question is, what are the opportunities in consulting? And before I answer that question, I would like to just emphasize that there are a plethora of opportunities for consulting across the generation value chain. There is consulting opportunity for design of energy projects. So if you're looking at a solar project, or you want to establish, or you want to build a solar project, there is a lot of consulting opportunities on the design phase of the development of the projects, which is typically done by project developers. There's also a lot of consulting opportunities on post the commissioning of the project, which looks at the optimal performance of that particular plant. And there is a lot of modeling consulting opportunities that exist in that area. When we look at the transmission distribution, there's a lot of opportunities that are emerging now, especially now that utilities are moving away from a base load management to an energy balancing management approach, which looks at feeding in of different energy providers onto the network. And there is communication operators that overlay the transmission network to look at its performance, to look at its health. Various large-scale electrical equipment that is installed across the transmission line require a lot of modeling solutions, operations and maintenance solutions. Along the transmission lines, there is bush clearing and vegetation management to preserve the environment, which is also a very specialized environmental health consulting space. When you look at the distribution network, which is now going to become multi-directional with the integration of renewable energy, there you are looking at a lot of consulting opportunities, from determining the capacity of power that flows at which time, so determining the power quality interruption because of the inclusion of different sources of energy. There is also asset management, the physical electrical equipment asset management across the value chain. And that is a consulting space that has a lot of opportunities. When you look at distribution, there's also revenue management, from the installation of smart meters, the management and the reading of smart meters, the collection of revenue, the management of revenue for a utility offers that revenue management value chain offers a number of consulting opportunities. There is large-scale project and program management opportunities for small-scale embedded generation projects, and also for projects that utilities are embarking on to transition to become a smart utility. So the digitalization and automation of substations, the procurement of those products and systems and solutions. There is a lot of design consulting scope that is available in that area. As you know, that a lot of consumers are also becoming prosumers. And so you are looking at a trading and energy trading environment that is emerging, that again offers a lot of consulting opportunities in the distribution space within the utility. I'm hoping that I have answered some of the questions, but before we lose Sis Elizabeth, I wanted to ask her a question on the developers. You said in the presentation that there are developers that are on standby, that are ready to assist emerging women entrepreneurs in the renewable energy a project space. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that means and how one can access such developers, and if there's a qualifying criteria to access such support?
Thank you very much. Before I talk about developers, I want to also add to what you have said. We, in the IPPs, you need a consultant who are financial transaction advisors. Then you also need a legal transaction advisors. And those are some of the critical skills that we do not have, and that our own consultants as women can start to specialize in and offer the services, not just here, but internationally as well. So I urge participants who are legal, participants who are in the accounting field, to look into short courses that can assist you now to become financial transaction advisors and legal transaction advisors. Thank you very much. In terms of developers, we have a number of small scale developers that can assist it and work with potential people that want to be generators. It's definitely not for free, but we have a list of them, and we can give the list to you and encourage them to give you their details, so that if you decide to get into the small scale embedded generation business, you can then easily access some of those developers that are available in South Africa and are able to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sis Elizabeth. Another question. I think here the question, there's a difference between 100 kilowatt and 100 megawatt. The extension that was announced by the president was that for own use, for own generation, industrial areas, commercial areas, mining houses, large power users are able to increase own use generation up to 100 megawatt. Am I correct, Sis Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's correct. It has been increased from 100 megawatts. If you recall, the initial, we were expecting that it will be increasing up to about 10 megawatts. And finally, they have said it should be increased up to 100 megawatts. So it's definitely 100 megawatts. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. The question from Historina is that, does it mean that anyone who installs a solar PV above 100 kilowatt can apply for a license to sell? My understanding, a license to sell is the same as a trading license, which is applied for at NERSA. Is that correct, Sister Elizabeth?
Yes, yeah. The license to sell, if you want to sell your energy, then you need to have a license which you apply for from NERSA. If self-generation for your own use at your own house, there are still discussions about it, but you are not required to apply for a license. But if you want to sell the energy that you are generating to anyone, then you need to have that license. You need to have the power purchase agreement with the person you are selling to. You need to have a willing agreement. I have listed all the requirements. So it's only when you are generating in order to sell to a customer that you need to then register with NERSA.
Yes, there's another question that says, does the project, or do the projects include biogas or only solar PV? I want to encourage the delegate to please study the integrated resource plan. The integrated resource plan that was promulgated in 2019 by government is the country's electricity infrastructure plan. And that determines the capacity of generation by different types of technologies, whether it's biogas, biomass, gas, solar, wind, or hydro. And that is what there is support for currently in the country. The integrated resource plan is available on the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy's website. And actually, if you go to Google and simply type IRP 2019, you will receive a PDF file of that particular plan. It will tell you the full electricity infrastructure plan for the country. Another question, final question before we go to our poll: where do I register as a consultant? All companies that are registered and they are legal entities that want to operate in the energy space are encouraged to register with the department, and we have shared the contact details. We'll also share the contact details and the website link on our website. Sis Elizabeth, thank you so much. Your presentations are always insightful, and we are always happy to have you at our webinars. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite you on your screen to please answer a simple poll that we are running just to assess how you have found the presentations. And if you click any one of the answers, that will be sufficient. The first question is, do you now understand the opportunities available in the energy and power sector? The second question, did you find the DMRE presentation useful? And lastly, do you understand the purpose of the AWEaP webinars? And the last question, you do not need to answer because it was created for a speaker who was not able to speak at this time. And those are the 3 questions that we have for you. We're going to move on to our next speaker. I'm very excited to have Ms. Nosizwe Dlengezele from General Electric, who is responsible for gas and gas solutions, not only in South Africa, but in the region. My excitement, particularly with her presentation, is she's going to speak on how, as entrepreneurs in the energy and power sector, we can organize ourselves to partner with original equipment manufacturers in the gas space. But those principles can also be used for other areas such as solar, wind, hydro, and any other area where you seek access to technology which is owned by an original equipment manufacturer. Sis Noz, we are always excited to have you. Please take over.
Thank you very much, Betha. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great day, wherever it is you are, in whichever part of the world. My name is Nosizwe, mostly known as Noz. And today I'm going to be sharing with you, I think, 3 pieces of information which can be quite helpful in assisting you with partnering strategically with OEMs, with developers, with EPCs. And I want to launch our discussion to just frame how it is we go about making decisions on which projects we are going to target and aim for. I'm also going to talk to you a bit about kind of the stakeholder map, all of the missing puzzles that are required in putting together a bankable and profitable and executable power project. And then finally, some of the programs that we have which really need to drive this inclusion of female participation within the energy sector. Certainly, I'm very excited about it as a commercial leader, being female. I don't see many Nosizwes in a lot of the boardrooms where I sit. And so any type of program that purports to increasing and enhancing this inclusion is always very exciting to me, and it's something that I'm very excited about. And Betha, thank you very much for passionately driving this initiative and ensuring that this inclusion happens and you create awareness at the right levels and the platform that's needed. To quickly just kick us off, I want to talk a bit about kind of GE in South Africa, and also to make our discussion more pragmatic so that you can see where we fit into policy as well as where the opportunities are then created. So next page, please. So one of the key things that GE as a power business globally, and in fact, not only as a power business, as an infrastructure and industrial business, is championing, walking this journey with its customers, is this entire concept around decarbonization. And really, what does decarbonization mean for the rest of the world? May similarly mean something different for South Africa. The decarbonization journey, which really champions how it is we approach all of our go-to-market strategies, becomes very interesting in South Africa because, as you may all know, South Africa too is going through its own process of just transition. And by just transition, what do people mean? I think the most simplistic way is, how do we move from a heavy carbon economy into the lowest carbon economy that we can, while ensuring that we bring everybody along on this journey? And so therefore, for us, the idea that we're going to migrate from coal, which is probably our heaviest, to a complete renewables generation country is good and well on paper, but what really does matter is the economy that supports that transition to ensure that we don't leave any people behind. So strategically in South Africa, when we look at areas of opportunities for General Electric, we are looking at coal repurposing. We know that there are a number of power plants that have either come to the end of the life cycle, or power plants that have simply just not been performing to the efficiency requirements that are needed, where the utility, specifically Eskom, has decided they need to be decommissioned. Now, that entire conversation around how we purpose a coal-fired power plant is really not so much about technology. This is something that General Electric has done widely before in the US and in Europe. But what really becomes pressing for us is that, how do we transition the coal economy to an energy mix that is low carbon and bring the people of those communities along with us and on board? And this is how we really approach such projects. The second piece, once again, is around an emerging markets transition to a low carbon economy. And for us, this gas and renewable energy mix, as laid out in the IRP, also becomes quite important, because not only are we talking about an inclusion of different feedstock, but we're also talking about new economies that are going to be created as a result thereof. And I'm going to leave aside the technical issues, obviously, that this combination of gas and renewables also brings from an opportunities perspective in the region. The third piece is around the gas economy. In other markets in SSA, GE, we have more than 70% market share, because they have always had gas that's been available to them to use to generate power. South Africa is an anomaly because our gas finds are very recent. Our indigenous gas will probably only come online in 8 to 9 years. And then we've got this transition of saying, we have this gas that's been identified, 3 gigawatts of it in our IRP, but is it sufficient that it is gas only for power generation? And I'm going to talk a bit about that on the oncoming slides. What we know to be very, very critical is that when we address the market like South Africa and we look at opportunities in South Africa, we not only look at gas as feedstock to our power, but also the various economies that can be built around the introduction of gas. Yes, power is a critical anchor to create the right economies of scale for this economy, but there are many other opportunities that can be created, I think, where women can have a really strong participation in, especially in this entire conversation around gas. And then lastly, I'm sure as people are talking about decarbonization, just transition, looking at what is indigenous to us, there's this potential that now comes with hydrogen as a fuel, but also hydrogen to power. The production of green hydrogen to enable this low-based generation economy that we're looking at. And so with these things in mind, when we approach the South African market, we are driven by ensuring that we are aligned not only to the policies of the government, we are not only aligned to the policies of some of our captive industries who are also on this decarbonization journey, but also wanting to make sure that we bring in our experiences that we've had in other markets in creating a gas economy that can provide the inclusion that's required. And one of the things that we're very focused on in South Africa, which is very exciting as we're about to kind of launch into this gas thought, is exploring meaningful local and international partnerships to help put all of this together for General Electric. At the core of our expertise is that we're manufacturers of equipment. However, it does not stop, nor does it end at the equipment. There are so many other stakeholders that bring these projects to life. And our ability to partner now meaningfully is a key focus of the team. The second piece is around developing an aligned pipeline. People take it for granted that the only thing that can sustain any business is a pipeline that's going to ensure continuity. We've had many industries, for example, such as the boiler industries, the rail industries, that have had kind of 20-year stop-start moments, and then an inability to sustain that post kind of that one project or that one program has been concluded. So for us, we understand that if we want to be inclusive, we want to create opportunities potentially at a global supply chain, we need to build a strong enough pipeline in South Africa to carry not only the GE business, but also the business of the partners that we seek. And then thirdly, I think demonstrating experience. And this is always a contentious issue when you're in a market that historically has probably not been a gas-ready market. Inclusion also happens meaningfully when we can share the experiences that we've learned in other markets, in our region, and also internationally with people whom we partner with. And then co-creation, and I love the space that we are around from a co-creation perspective, especially when you look at all of kind of the digital impact on power plants and the new jobs that are going to be created and the new thoughts that are going to be created. And so to be able to partner not only kind of with our public sector, but also with our local partners to jointly develop solutions together is something that's very important to the business. And then lastly, it's working on innovative commercial models. In South Africa, over the past 5 years, we see the decline of corporate financing for a lot of these projects. We see the upsurge of the IPPs that have happened through the IPP office, all very exciting stuff. But then there's a new thought now around these hybrid IPPs in terms of how do we get private developers to partner with the public sector in order to bring infrastructure projects to a head. And I do believe that a lot of the niche that women seek is around this idea of creating all of these very innovative commercial structures that are going to be enablers going forward. Critical themes for success for South Africa, as we all sit here and we talk about the excitement in the energy space, is policy. It's great that Elizabeth already touched on the 100 megawatt self-generation lift that happened. I think it's great news for industries that want to take control back of their own energy security for their own production. We do believe this is going to create a surge in opportunities around just the space that women can play. The second piece, which is very important for us, is the gas master plan. We continue to encourage all of our stakeholders to ensure that we create this framework specifically for gas. It is great that other renewables projects, I think, are starting to get policy shape, and that's why we see so much traction. But from a gas perspective, we need this framework to also help us know how it is we play, how we trade, how we sell, how we bill, how we rate, and also how we partner. And then the crystallizing of these hybrid triple Ps. And I think the crystallizing of hybrid triple Ps is probably going to be at the cornerstone of South Africa's infrastructure success. Our ability to work with our state-owned entities, with our national treasury, using the strong balance sheet of the private sector and investment to really create projects that have meaning, that are also sustainable. And then lastly, as we talk about decarbonization opportunities, policies, the one thing that as South Africans we need to be constantly mindful of is that we must prioritize energy security for industrialization. Because without a robust industrialization strategy, there is no place for economic inclusion. And so really the reason why we cry over the energy, it's not so much to turn our lights on at home, which we can easily do through a solar panel, but it's to make sure that we can invite large or heavy energy users back into our country to grow this pie so that more people can be great participants in it. So just laying out the framework of where GE is from a strategy perspective when it comes to South Africa, what we seek and what we need to succeed. I'm going to roll then over to the next page, which is going to come across as a little bit shocking to some of you. But I think we share this page so that people understand complexities and the puzzles that are required to put the projects that you then get the benefit of together. This is an example of what was shared by the IPP office around a bundled gas project that they released through the PIM 4 years ago. And they took this out into industry and they said, if we want gas-fired power plants, these are all the players that we need to be involved. And I'm quickly going to start. So the first thing that we need is that somebody needs the gas. So we need to buy the gas because it's not yet indigenous to us. We need the port infrastructure to be developed in order for that to happen. We need gas storage and regas facilities to be put up in the country if LNG is what we're going to be imported. We need transmission and distribution for gas. We need the technology at the plant size. We need the connection to the grid. We need off-takers. Who's going to buy all of this stuff once we've done it? We need all of the port infrastructure to be made ready. We need third-party access to make the program work. We need power plants, we need feeder plants around it, and we need the power plant to operate at a certain merit that is aligned to our demand and our forecast. And we want all of these great things to happen with a tariff that is going to be competitive and not too far from coal. In addition to that, we want to ensure that 35% of this consortium is owned by South Africans. We also want to make sure that we create localization, job creation opportunities out of this power plant. And this is the ask that governments like South Africa ask of industry. Now, the developers that put this framework together to create a bankable consortium that's going to deliver this type of power spend on average about 3.5 years going from the most basic feasibility studies to EIAs, partnership arrangements, financing structures, PPA structures that are needed, all the guarantees being put together so that the project comes alive. So even though it looks complex, there is time, there is money, there are partnerships that are formed at the thought. And the thought that I'd like all of you to leave this slide with is that under each and every single block, there is an opportunity. But where the opportunity is going to present itself is around early engagement. So the opportunity will not come when the tender is ready to be almost submitted 6 months down the line. The opportunity is going to come in yourselves engaging OEMs like myself, tier 1, tier 2 developers, EPC companies, 3 years prior to even the actual bid being released. That's the first thing. The second piece, it's around defining that niche for yourself. And I'll talk about the various areas of niche. They touched on them quite elaborately in the previous conversation as well. Your niche is where you want to play. It's where you are most interested, where you are most committed. The power sector or the energy sector as a whole, we say it's not a hit and run. It's not that thing that you're going to go and do today where you're going to yield today and your future is going to be glorious ever after. This is the type of sector that needs long-term commitment and people who understand that they're going to yield their IRR over a lengthier period of time. So what we do on a day-to-day basis, especially in our region in sub-Saharan Africa, is that we often realize as well that not all of the skill sets are here to craft such complex projects of this nature. And at times as OEMs, we are forced to help co-develop some of these projects. And in that co-development process, what do? We identify the opportunities, we identify partners. I will share a brief story before I land onto the next page, I think, which is going to make this a bit pragmatic for you. When the risk mitigation rounds were opened last year through the DMRE, people thought about the technology, they thought about efficiency, and at the very 11th hour, there was a scrounge of people looking for either Black partners or female partners to complete what this consortium would look like. We have seen this happen, especially in South Africa, when any projects are being launched. It is right at the end that suddenly there's just this scrounge into the market, find any female-owned entity, bring them in, we'll get them some shares, some will be freeloaded, we'll arrange financing, but we need to make the aesthetics look well and good. I think there are great opportunities that are missed in doing that. Because in that process, nobody gets to learn, nobody gets to prepare, and actually nobody gets to yield, I think, fully the true benefits that come out of these power projects over time. So as I segue into the next page, this is to just make sure that you understand the complexity, the different areas that are needed to put the projects together that we do. Now, this is specific to where you can find an opportunity within the development of a power plant. There are people who purely want to have a financial investment into these plants. We call these our finance people. They like to put the rand down and they would like a return for it. There are people within the banking sector, financing houses, who like to take on these debt. We usually see our 4 large banks involved. There's an introduction of international banks. Our DFIs play into the space. But with that said, there are a lot of other interested investors that you can partner with who are interested in both debt and equity of projects. So let's just start there. And then from a government perspective, there are multiple agreements that our government needs to go through. And in order for them to conclude those agreements, I remember a project where I think we had 113 agreements that needed to be done. It means that just purely from a public sector point of view, there are opportunities with legal, there are opportunities with consulting, transaction advisory, because a lot of these skills are not in-house. All of these skills have been mined out. And then there's an opportunity within the IPP and the project SPV itself. And when we look at the project SPV, what is it responsible for? It's responsible for the development. So your permits, your land, your waivers, your EIAs. There are multiple opportunities when you do engage IPPs early to provide those services to them or to be part of the IPP itself. So one of the things that I would suggest now is we can share with you kind of a laundry list of all of the tier 1, tier 2 developers and the different ways in which you can begin to engage them now around all of these other services. But what the IPP is also responsible for kind of post the development phase as they're getting to financial close is that it is the IPP that buys equipment from us through their EPC. So there is an opportunity to engage with EPCs as well around supply, around construction, if that is what you choose to do, even around consulting, so that they too are able to meet some of the ED targets that they have. From an equipment perspective, where we sit, when we have the right economies of scale and the BOP of the plant allows us to, we are able to purchase a lot of those critical items that are needed locally. So a lot of people in our world will talk about cables, they'll talk about valves, they'll talk about filters, they'll talk about there's an entire list of what we procure locally, because we too have ED targets that we need to meet as well. And then there's the piece around construction and construction management. And this creates a great opportunity for a lot of women who are getting into construction, who are getting into project management, who are getting into just procurement to help support all of these services. And then there's another interesting bit around the plant operation and maintenance. Somebody has to operate that plant and maintain it so that it is bankable, right? So the area of who is doing that work today is another area where you can begin to engage IPPs around how they are going to structure their O&M. And then fuel infrastructure, which is an amazing piece. And the simplest way to describe fuel infrastructure, for us, fuel infrastructure, it's like owning a coal mine. It's just that ours is either piped through, it's piped gas that comes from somewhere, or it's gas that we get LNG regasified from an FSRU. Everything that happens around the fuel is an entire economy on its own, including the O&M in that. So when we look at all of these opportunities, it takes about 3 years to construct this. The average project in our continent takes about 7 to 8 years to get to financial close. We've seen financial close happen much faster now, which means that your ability to engage earlier has become even more significant and even been more important. The last point that I want to make as I look at the slide, and the advice that I would like to give to women or female, let me say female entrepreneurs who are eager to enter into the space, is that I would advise you to spend the time on refining your niche rather than being opportunistic. Because everybody wants a partner that has passion, that has commitment to any type of project that they're getting into. Nobody is looking for, I'd call it a hit and run, someone who's just there to make the buck and go. I think that's the one reason why I really do implore you to refine your niche. The second thing around refining your niche, nationals. When services qualify for a multinational, those services do not only qualify for South Africa. Those services qualify broadly as a supplier in our global supply chain. So that means that our ability to use you on projects that are even outside of the region become even far greater. And sustaining that, I think, is what truly builds and creates a great energy business for one to be involved in. It allows you to have the references that you need moving forward, and it also sets you apart from the rest. Now, the last slide I want to talk about, and I'm going to jump the slide and say there are a number of ways as General Electric we partner. We either partner and we sub to an EPC. So the EPC just gives us a contract and we have a certain mandate to fulfill. And often enough, they will carry a lot of our ED scope within them. But we too are expected to make sure that, you know, we are correctly empowered. GE is a level 1 BEE company, and it is an important thing for us to be that so that we can contribute to kind of the full requirements of the law. At times, what we also do is that we go into open consortiums with EPCs and with partners, where we take on some of that responsibility for the construction of the plant. And in that light, it also makes sure that our involvement in terms of who partners with us is more vigorous and it's more closely guarded. And then the third way, sometimes in very rare instances, we do have full turnkey projects as GE. The Medupi and Kusile are an example of how GE took those projects on turnkey, because that is the construct that was required by the country. And then the last message that I would like to share, just keep in the back of your mind in terms of how we partner. So we do invite all of our guests today to engage our sourcing team. And this is the very simple process that you will go through. One, work on your compliance. We know KYCs and KYPs. If you spend time working on your compliance and you're working on your niche, you've got the two most critical ingredients to make yourself an attractive partner to any multinational or partner that is seeking that relationship. People take this for granted. We do turn down partnerships that do not meet our compliance standard. And there's a whole, the whole number of reasons why this is something that is fundamentally so important, I think, to us. The second piece is around vendor qualification, your products, your services, and your quality standards. At GE, safety comes first for us. And so it is important that the standards that we uphold at our own manufacturing plants, the standards that we uphold in our own consulting processes, we want to ensure that we're with partners who, even though they may not have that standard now, but we've got a very good view and a trajectory in terms of how we can get them to that quality standard. So we can't jipper it, you can't wing it, you can't take someone's presentation and mask it as your own. There is going to be an engagement process because we are going to have to carry some of that risk for you. And also it's because you're part of a bigger global brand that is going to be working with you. The last piece is around value proposition. Being female is not a good enough value proposition, unfortunately, when it comes to how we develop these projects. But being a female that has a niche, that is compliant, that demonstrates commitment, is really what we seek. And then the last piece that I really want to encourage everyone to do, I hope that as a result of this engagement today, it's around early market engagement. Very few people, especially in South Africa, engage our organization at the conceptual stages of projects. And then when the tenders are out, we get 100 more phone calls, emails. You know, our managing director for the SADC and East Africa region, you know, sits with a list of people who approach her, right, on wanting to do business with GE. But then unfortunately, it's too late because the construct has already been developed. The financing has already been structured. And now we're just at the latter tail ends of refining our proposals in a hope to win in the bids that we submit. There are 3 programs that we have at GE as a parting shot that I also would like to make sure that some of you can take advantage of. We do have an enterprise development program. Year to date, we are still looking for enterprises that are interested in participating, especially in the gas value chain. And in our enterprise program, we do a number of things. We've got grant funding that we give to our enterprises. We've got training that we provide. We've got support services that we provide for our enterprise development candidates. And this happens for us annually. And so I would like to invite those of you who are interested in this space to come through, share your details with us. Let's go through the process together so you can participate. We also have a supplier development program. It was very robust in our steam business, our renewables business as well as it takes shape. They are also getting a lot of traction. We are yet to build our gas supply database. And the time to do that is now. Because if our forecast is coal repurposing, it's 3 gigawatts for SA gas to power, it's the captive market with 100 megawatts. The time for you to engage us as a potential supplier is now, so that we can go through the processes that are alluded to on the left, and we can begin a great conversation. And then finally, something that I think is quite a big marker in GE's legacy is this conversation around leadership development and training that we do provide to our partners. So we do run series where we are talking to our captains of industry, we are talking to our HR practitioners, we do talk to entrepreneurs, also taking them kind of through the most skeletal ways in which they too can begin to either become a junior developer or in terms of how to partner with one. So I do encourage you to go onto our website. I do encourage you to send us emails, which we will share post this webinar, especially around your participation on the gas value chain. And as a last parting thought, the issue of energy rests upon women, the usage of energy in our continent specifically. And so it is only befitting that people who use energy to sustain their families and keep them healthy on a day-to-day basis become part of this economy, and they're not left behind. So when we talk about decarbonization, when we talk about digital migration, when we talk about all of these wonderful concepts, it's critical to make sure that you will remain included and you will also become part of the story that I think South Africa can tell in the energy space. So Betha, thank you very much. And I think that's where I'll leave off.
Thank you so much. What an insightful presentation. So much to take, so much to learn. Find your niche, be a passionate, committed partner. Most important is early engagement. I think that for me is such a crucial nugget to take from your presentation, that when opportunities are announced, it's not the time to engage. Engage early enough to benefit from some of the development programs that you have for partners, and so that when the construct of the project development is being put together, you are already embedded in it, having qualified and met all the standards that are prescribed by the OEM. And each OEM has its own standards and its own requirements. And it's best to know that way in advance before the market announces opportunities, so you can prepare yourself to meet those standards. Number two, it's very encouraging to see GE's inclusion program for partners and those interested to play in the gas space. And I want to highlight, unless you have a niche where you have developed a value proposition that is compelling, and you have gone out of your way to research and find out what qualifications you require, what standards, market standards do you need to meet? What is the best industry practice you need to meet? It'll be very difficult for you to present a case for partnership with an OEM. And so thank you very much for your presentation. The presentation is going to be shared on our website webinar series platform. You'll be able to access it. Additionally, the webinar is recorded, so you'll be able to download the presentation and listen to the audio presentation itself, so you can remind yourself of this beautiful nuggets that we've received. Thank you so much, Sis Noz, for your presentation. We're running about 10 minutes or so behind time, but I allowed Sis Noz to present, to give a presentation in full, because I believed not only for the gas market, but whether you want to play in solar, in hydro, in waste, in wind, her principles apply when you are looking to partner and access technology and access opportunities. As she has said, when she presented the different aspects that make up project development, there are opportunities under each one of those aspects. And for you to be able to access those opportunities, you need to engage the OEMs much earlier. We're going to move on swiftly to our next presentation. It's by Dr. Ellsworth Jonathan. I introduced him earlier. He is a specialist in supply chain management. So if you can just shift your outlook, we had an industry focus, we had an OEM that presented how you partner and how you should position yourself to play. Now we're going to look at a different perspective of participating in the energy and power space, which is looking at the utility space. In South Africa, we've got 177 municipalities licensed to distribute electricity, and therefore they form part of the utility market. And I know in other markets such as Kenya, you've got 3 utilities across the 3 areas of the value chain: KenGen in generation, Kentraco in transmission, and KPLC in distribution. And other markets also have different utilities. So it's quite important to learn how you can navigate the supply chain space in order to increase your chances of success. Dr. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Bertha. And also welcome to all the women who is going to listen and who I'm going to take through the supply chain journey or understanding of supply chain. What we're going to talk about is firstly the understanding of supply chain management, what it is all about, how it is working. Then also we're going to talk about the methodologies followed by these big utilities before they make a decision to go out on tender or when to go out on tender. Then we're going to look at the 5 pillars of procurement, which is in line with the constitution of the country of South Africa, obviously. Why do tenders fail? So important. We're going to look at that, and we're going to have look at some of the examples, and also how to make your bid compatible. And 5 major tender corruption cases. Why do they decide to be corrupt? We're going to talk about it, rethinking the energy sector, and also then the impact of entrepreneurs on the supply chain and the resiliency thereof. Okay, no. Yeah, this is just like, this slide is just telling who I am, where I'm from. I'm not just going to talk and talk. You guys are going to wonder, who's this guy from? Yes, I did work for the big organization called Eskom Holdings. I've been the advisor to the CPO for Eskom. I've started really at the bottom in Eskom, so I do understand. I've been in the tender office. I do understand what's happening in the tender office, what's going wrong with the tenders. Why do people not get responses for their tenders? Why do people go to court for tenders they were not awarded? And also, I've advised the CPO, I've advised the chief operating officer of Eskom, the CFO, I've advised legal services, and sometimes the CEO. So I have a little bit of knowledge, if I can put it that way. Also in the risk and resilience of supply chain management. I think I'm leaning these days now more towards the resilience than anything else, and also to assist with the investigations of fraud, procurement fraud. What I would like to also say, my next slide is basically just saying, everybody was like, years and years ago, we know that women went to Parliament, they went to Pretoria, they've gone through so much pain, so much violence, so much hatred, if I can put it that way. And isn't it that we, as South Africans, have to embrace this now and say, we have listened. We have listened to what women's got to say. And ladies, all the ladies, we've listened. So now we're going to the nitty and gritties, and we're going to make sure that everybody understands at least what it is, what we're talking about. And when we say supply chain is sometimes directly, other times indirectly, but it's the fulfillment of requirements. It's what people would like to have. It includes various functions, various activities, and it's a flow of transformation. So people will always want to be involved. People will always want to know, what can I supply? How do I get this? I remember when I started off with supply chain, and I didn't even know that what it was. It was then called procurement only, and supply chain was another segment of it. And I was always asking myself, what am I doing? And it's you every day buying something, and what you're buying comes from a flow. As the supply chain management is saying as well, the efficient integration of suppliers, which can be factories, which can be warehouses and stores. We integrate them, and they all form part of the supply chain management. And at the right location, at the right time, the right place, sometimes, not all the time anymore, the right cost as well, or the right price, because obviously supply chain management, or when you build a supply chain facility, it's costly. But if you provide, it has to be at the right cost. And what makes supply chain decisions so important? You have two broad categories when you make a decision. And one of the categories is like strategic, and the other one, obviously, operational. Where am I going to be based, and why am I going to be based where I want to base? Am I a pick and pay, or am I going to supply a pick and pay? Basically, that's what it is. Am I a distributor of electricity, and I'm just going to supply electricity? Am I Eskom, or am I Nosive, or am I Murabwa? You know, it just tells where you fit in. And we're going to show exactly now, how do we fit in, and what makes companies like the Escoms, like the Transnets, like Denel and them, what take them to the decision of who to deal with and who they see as strategically and who they see as more supply the day-to-day basis. If we go to the next slide, we'll see that in some cases, you will have 7 processes, you'll have 5 processes. It depends really on the company. But when we look at the first one, and this is really where I want to go a little bit in depth on this slide, so that people can understand where the previous speakers comes from and why it is so important that we decide to go out in the market. Firstly, the project kick-off meeting takes place in the beginning of a project. We've decided this is where we are now. We want 100 megawatts. The government didn't overnight decided, oh yeah, 100 megawatts is going to be okay, or 20 is going to be okay. There was a lot of intelligence that they've done. There was a lot of people sitting around a table and decided, listen, what was our learnings? What do we plan? Which sectors are we targeting? And are there going to be improvements? Yes, the improvements going to be less blackouts for the country. So the second point is the collection of our data. Where did we get this data? Nowadays it's easy, but the data was so raw, and in times it's so raw that we don't have the data, and we just decide that, listen, maybe we can go for 10 suppliers, and this is the 10 suppliers we have on our database. That was the wrong move. That was always the wrong move. I remember in 2008, when we started with strategic supply chain management in Eskom, there were 2 suppliers of transformers. And we've said, no, but the data we've collected is only from 2 suppliers. Let's see, let's analyze, let's see where else we can go. And what was wrong? We said we wanted a specific brand. That's what's wrong. We want a specific output. Instead of just, we want electricity, we want oil-based. Now we say we want, for instance, Sasol energy-based, we want BP energy-based, instead of just being generic. And this was the data we got. And we got back, and we got 208 transformer suppliers. Now, how do you analyze such a big thing? 208 suppliers. What we did, we went out and we said, listen, this is what we would like them to do. This is how, firstly, ownership in South Africa, this is what we would like ownership to be like. This is how are they going to get on the grid? How are they going to transport these items to South Africa? Who is going to transport the items from the harbor inside? You see, there already the supply chain is starting. because now we're looking at who's going to deliver the items inland, who's going to deliver to the coastal, who's taking it from the ship. We didn't produce the transformers at first, but there was already a creation. We could create opportunity for South Africans. And that's what the fourth point was: identify improvement opportunities. That's where we now. This is where our ladies can come in. Our ladies don't have to now come and run around and say, I have to be an electrician, I have to be an electrical engineer, I have to be able to do panels, I have to be able to do, as my Elizabeth said earlier on, that's not where we're going. Nozi said that's not where we're going. But your niche, this is where you're going. That's what we would like to see you come up and say, listen, I need development somewhere there. And that's also one of the cases we've identified. We need to develop a system. We need to develop a strategy. Well, how are we going to approach the market? We can't just tell the market we want 200 transformers. That's it. One company is going to win it. And one company, or maybe two, or cartel is going to win it. Oh, that's where you encourage collusions. People will say, let's charge that price. Let's build the stadiums in South Africa. Let's just be 5 companies building stadiums. And that's exactly, if you don't have a strategy to develop. So your RFP process will determine that. And here we said RFP, normally not even an RFP. It can be an RFQ, it can be an RFI. You can start somewhere. You have to know your next step. It's so important that the detail comes from the RF or RX process. But here we have an RFP process because now we know we want additional electricity. We're going to go out and we're going to say either we want windmill farms, or we want solar panels, or we want gas, or whatever it's going to be. We're going to tell people you don't have to go and buy a farm. We're going to tell people you can, but we're not going to buy, as a government, buy the energy back from you. You have to come up with another plan. So this is where your detail is coming, the process. How are you going to do it? What you're going to do? So in supply chain, the methodologies they're looking at, when we look at number 8, the implementation of the process improvement, you can see there's a circle. It's going to start again. This is your tendering process, your contract process, basically, where we're going to say the contract will be for the following, and how do we get to that contract? This is the result of your RFP process. We've said this is what we're going to go out on tender for. This is what we receive back from the market. This is how we're going to contract with the suppliers. Not one guy doing everything. We want one guy to do maintenance. We want one company to do the installation. We want one company to do the transportation thereof. So there is ways how we can go about it. But now if the methodology is finished and we finish with 8 and we've looked back and we sit back and, hey, we want lessons to be learned. And this is where we get. Did we follow the 5 pillars of procurement? This is from the South African Constitution. Did we follow it? Then we have to sit back as the procurer, in this case, as the ESCOM, or as the distribution function. Did we get value for our money? How do you determine that? Are we going to go again and tender and let them tender again for the same item? How long? What's the lifespan of this item? Was it the best value? Now, sometimes we leave it, we just let go because it's our friends. We should monitor the supply arrangements. The supply chain should monitor those arrangements. The arrangement is the contract. Do they come in like the grass cutting? How often do they cut the grass for us? How high must the grass grow before they cut it? Do we want to pay every week the same guy for cutting grass, but there was no rain? So we have to look at that. Is it value for our money? And that's also how you're going to ensure that there's always improvement in efficiencies. Sometimes we want to tar a road and we say women-owned companies. And it doesn't mean women-owned company means that if you're a lawyer, if you're a dentist, that you cannot take part in another industry. Remember that, please, because I know there was some story that a lawyer took a contract and or a dentist had a contract. If you can do it and it's your niche market, it doesn't mean you cannot take part, but efficiency is, that's what it is. And the open and effective competition. Why is the competition open? That's what the pillars, the 5 pillars of the Constitution is all about. Was it open competition? Who took part in it? Who knew beforehand? It's like an exam. Did I know beforehand what I'm going to write? And now I'm getting 75%. Remember, we argued that point now the other day for some kids who got a newspaper before the exams. This is what it is. The competition must be fair. I must close my eyes and say, because of X, Y, Z, and not move the goalpost while the game is on. That's also not fair. That's not fair. We can't say you have to be a woman-owned, because we see now we're going to have to issue it to a 80% black man-owned. We just said we want black ownership. So we have to be upfront with things like that. The ethics and fair dealings. Will we fair with our suppliers? Will we be open-handed with our suppliers? I'm sorry for far, it should be fair dealings. And did we provide assistance to eliminate fraud? Sometimes we're standing up there and we give, at the clarification meetings, we give you some detail how to deal with the tender, what to write in the tender. And in the meantime, you still don't understand. And you think that asking the question now will make me look like I cannot do the work. There's other ways. You write the question as long as it's in time, but don't pay for the answer. Otherwise, it's not ethical. Do we take accountability? And this and reporting, you had that. We have it in place. We have that in place. Government is taking full, they listen to the reporting, there's accountability that is taking place. Some of the entities went there and they spoke about why they couldn't issue certain tenders, what happened to the tenders, was it open, was it transparent? We sit back and we wonder, who did they want? And how it's so clear. You can be clear when you start your tendering process and say exactly what I would like to see. Where must they be from? Why must they be from there? How must their abilities be as a human? Like, must we want so many people which must be handicapped, physically handicapped, or living with a disability, or having a disability? And how are we doing that? And we must promote women. But sometimes we just get a doctor's note saying that the person has a disability. Is that good enough? You have to decide.
Sorry to interrupt you. I need you to get to the point where we speak to the entrepreneurs, because we're running out of time before our panel.
Okay, sorry, Bertha, that's the next slide, if I'm right. Is that the one where we fail the birds? I'll high level charge this. I won't go to each and any point, but the next one is very important, and that's so easy not to make the short list. Poor documentation. We come up and we just drop documents and we say, we don't even write which tender we're tendering for. We don't supply them with the necessary or documentation they've asked for. We try to lead the buyer into believing that we understand the tender by have flowery wording, and sometimes also, which is very important, is time. We as entrepreneurs waste time, or we just don't stick to time. And then also we're taking part in tenders whereby we're not going to contribute. We're not going to be able to contribute at all. And be persuasive, not descriptive. We know what we want. Give us what we want. That's more or less that slide. And then my next slide is just become competitive in the market. Make sure you stay relevant. Make use of the opportunities. When you have a tender, follow the instructions. Don't write, as I've said earlier on, don't address what's not been asked be proactive. Your pricing, as Elizabeth said earlier on, be competitive. And it's so important to research your company you would like to provide a service for. Also address the criteria. That's where we're also not so good in addressing criteria. The next one is tender corruption as well. We've touched it, but I'm just gonna run through this one and say, careful of bribery. You as much as guilty. I think it's the next slide, Bertha. Bribery, bid rigging, collusive bidding, fraud, nepotism, or patronage. If you benefit from it, and the lawyer will tell you, if you benefit from it, at how small you are, what a beautiful, tiny woman you are, if you benefit from any of this, you corrupt. And nobody would like to do business with you anymore. And also, the next slide will be more of where are we? Did we ever think we're going to end up here? No, we didn't. We didn't know last 2020 was going to end up like this for the energy sector. But what is happening now? You will read this slide, it's available for you. But what's happening now, it's the next slide, is just 2 pointers there. And this is where we benefit because of COVID, the resilience. Now, all these big suppliers would like to still be important. They still want to provide services. They're going to come and they're going to say, listen, we are Eskom and we need 100 megawatts more. Come, we will train you. Come, be part of it. And government is really for this. Government is entertaining this. Government is like, yes, we would like to. And then augmentation, exactly what I've said now. You will not be able to tomorrow supply Eskom with 400 liters of diesel, but you'll be able to supply them with 50,000 liters. And that's where augmentation is coming. You'll be part of the supply chain resilience. You will make sure that big company becomes again stronger. You'll make sure that the flexibility is back. And thank you, and that's my story. I'll be around for later some questions.
Sure. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to move swiftly to invite Darishni Chalti, who is coming from Nedbank, to share with us how Nedbank is supporting women entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Bertha. There is a presentation that I sent through.
Yes, you did. Tawela, can we cue Darishni's presentation, please? While she does that, maybe you can just introduce in general your department and how it supports energy projects in particular.
Okay, sure, no problem. Thank you. Thanks, and good day to everyone on the webinar. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So I'm from the Energy Finance team in Nedbank CIB. The Energy Finance team sits within the broader corporate and investment banking group. And we are a team that is dedicated to financing energy-related projects in Africa, so in Africa and in South Africa and Africa. Today, I will be discussing the types of projects that Nedbank finances, key bankability factors that we look for, and access to finance for female entrepreneurs in the energy sector. If you could go to the next slide. So the Nedbank team focuses on providing comprehensive funding solutions to companies within the African energy sector. We look at programs throughout Africa that focus on large-scale utility energy production, as well as embedded generation projects. We've been very active in the South African market. So to date, we have funded 42 projects and advanced over 37 billion rand worth of debt since 2012 in the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program. We focus on renewable energy technologies such as solar PV, wind, hydro, CSP, and biomass. And we've also funded gas power plants, and our mandate spans the African continent. The next slide. So another key aspect of our offering is funding in the embedded generation space. We've built a book that works very well on a portfolio funded strategy. And with the recent announcement by the president to increase the threshold for own generation to 100 megawatts, we definitely see this as an interesting space to be in, and we expect market activity to boom. I want to highlight, though, that although we are a dedicated energy finance team, we work very closely with other teams within the bank that can provide products to entrepreneurs that may not fall within the energy team's offerings. And these are specifically, I'll go through them, the alternative investments team at Nedbank. They have an aggressive mandate for startup financing, and they've made many investments to date. They can look at projects on a case-by-case basis. The private equity team can also look at funding startups. Then we've got the business banking and retail banking divisions that finance projects that may be a bit small for the CIB team. However, they are also able to fund businesses in the supporting sectors, example, in the construction and operation sectors. But whilst none of these offerings are aimed specifically at women-led businesses, because that is quite a niche market, it does fall within the ambit of their scope. I'm happy to put anyone interested into contact with our coverage team at Nedbank that can assist with directing you to the relevant teams that can assist with your specific financing needs. We've also got a team in, we've also got a team in CIB, that's the principal finance team, that looks specifically at equity funding solutions to shareholders. This team has played an important role in financing renewable energy projects. They can provide loans to developers as well as BEE financing into the projects. And later on, I will touch on alternative funding mechanisms to local developers. The next slide. So our portfolio to date has been quite strong because of the stringent requirements that we place on our due diligence. We carefully analyze the projects brought to us and select projects that are developed by experienced and knowledgeable developers. We work together with the IPPs to enable the highest chance of success once we know that a solid project is being presented. So the selection criteria for large-scale power projects includes experienced developers with track records in similar-sized projects with the same technology. It is understood that it's a bit difficult for local businesses for this type of experience in South Africa, but I really suggest partnering with the big developer. The developers will bring the skills and experience required, and there can be a transfer of skills and know-how through this partnership. So the latest RFP issued for round 5 of the REAP program requires 49% local shareholding. Of that, 5% must be women participation, and the management team must comprise of at least 8% female. This is a significant change because there was previously no hard requirement for female participation in the REAP program. And there's certainly an opportunity here for women-led businesses to partner with project developers. It not only fosters inclusiveness, but it enables skills transfer, which is crucial for ongoing participation of women in the industry. Another key aspect we look for is a deep understanding of the market, industry, and framework within which the project is being bid. The REAP program has worked so well because the power purchase agreement with Eskom is on a take-or-pay basis, meaning that you have a secure income stream, and these are backed by government guarantees. The offtake agreements are very important because security of income is crucial to the project. The developers must also be able to package equity funding and select the set of shareholders that meet the project and the program requirements and that have something to bring to the project. Lenders do not provide 100% funding for energy projects because skin in the game is needed from the shareholders. Lenders merely provide the funding, and we rely on shareholders to run and operate the power plants, and all interests need to be aligned in this respect for overall success. But there is a great opportunity here for female entrepreneurs to speak to developers early on to form a relationship and become a part of the consortium, and the developer also helps you with access to financing. We also look at the land and resource, example, solar, wind generation, environmental impacts, procurement of licenses and permits, project costs. These include the EPC, equipment, operations. So we're essentially looking for a strong project that makes sense financially. Environmental considerations are a key aspect in project financing. Almost all the banks are equated principal banks, and a thorough DD is conducted by the financiers and the advisors. Nedbank, being a green bank, has a special focus on green projects and has deep support at all levels at the bank for energy procurement. Reputational risk is crucial for the banks. Our KYC DD is thoroughly conducted upfront, and we only put our names to a project, especially when it comes to submitting bid support letters, that we'll know will not have any reputational impacts on the bank. As a part of our DD, we scrutinize the construction and operation contracts as well as equipment suppliers to ensure that these are the right parties with relevant experience and financial creditworthiness. Because the contractors need to provide bonds as a part of their security package as well. The RE program has a specific requirement for local participation in the EPC and O&M contracts. That is 25% Black ownership and 5% women shareholding. Another key opportunity is here for local companies to partner with contractors to secure long-term contracts for their projects. A recent study by ARINA showed that female participation in the energy sector is only 32%. While this is still low and warrants significant changes to be made, it is even lower, I believe, in the construction side of things. But the policy changes that we've seen recently, do go a long way, and it's a significant step in the right direction. The next slide. Sorry, on the next slide. Okay, so on this slide, we will look at tools to finance renewable energy projects. These are the types of financing products that lenders typically offer. The first being bid bonds, issued on behalf of the bidder when submitting bids, especially in the utility programs. Then we've got long-term debt, which is JIBA and CPI-linked debt. These typically range from 10 to 17 years, and they are dependent on the term of the power purchase agreement and the guarantee supporting that PPA. We are also able to provide hard currency funding, mainly USD and Euro funding. These are typically 5 to 7 years and may need a little more support, such as political risk insurance in most African countries. Nedbank also has presence in some African countries, such as Mozambique and Eswatini. And we also have a partnership with EcoBank that allows us to do local currency funding in over 36 countries. Short-term facilities, example, construction facilities. This is where we fund the construction period, which is typically 24 months, and it must be repaid at the end of construction. We also do working capital facilities, VAT facilities, any associate guarantees, example, the decommissioning reserve guarantees, which are procured within the project security. We are also able to provide companies, we're also able to provide guarantees and funding to companies needed in the construction and operation sector that's needed within these project finance structures. So I spoke about equity financing earlier, and that's available from our principal finance team. It's secured by the dividend flow to the shareholders. And building a portfolio to leverage here can really assist to secure funding for future projects. The other services that we provide for the projects include hedging for foreign exchange and interest rate risk, account bank services, facility agent services, and we also offer advisory services to assist with procuring equity and debt financing and also financial modeling. So when it comes to the small, we're still on the previous slide. So when it comes to small scale power projects, the lifting of the 100 megawatts recently really has opened the door for us. Nedbank does have an established book in the embedded generation space, and this is mostly done on a portfolio funding basis. Funding requirements are similar to that of large-scale projects, but since it is on a smaller scale, it is easier for developers with less extensive experience to participate. So the next slide. So here I just want to add that the smaller programs are a great way for small businesses to start building up their portfolio and experience levels, and also to get skills transfer from larger developers. Combining a few small projects into a portfolio can become easier to finance and bid. One of these reasons is the cheaper advisor costs, for example. An example would be the legal costs to draft documents. I mean, we know project finance is very documentation heavy. These can be high for a small project, and it really cannot warrant doing that project with such high costs. But when you share it within a portfolio, it drives down the overall cost and it makes it easier to bid. Speaking to a large developer early on can be beneficial to secure shareholding and contracts in the construction, operations, the catering and cleaning, and the maintenance sectors. These are sectors that support the project and are quite vital. Another key element I want to touch on, and this is in the REAP program, is spending in the local communities and social spend. Because the project companies are required to spend a certain level of revenue on community upliftment. So there's an opportunity here to partner with the project companies to secure contracts for services in the local communities, and hard contracts always assist with accessing financing because it builds on the creditworthiness. I want to highlight development finance institutions have a specific mandate for providing developmental funding. DFIs such as the IDC and DBSA and even some foreign DFIs are able to provide competitive funding to local and BEE shareholders. And we've seen that, quite a bit in this space. In the earlier rounds of REAP, we saw foreign developers, the foreign IPPs, vendor financing local participants, especially across a portfolio where they've built a good relationship. And while this still can be done, the BE funding in the financing sector is growing and it warrants less of the vendor financing. Certain funds, I know Stanlib is one of them, also provides equity funding into projects and have an aggressive mandate to fund into this long-term assets. Next slide. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I just want to say thank you for listening. Nedbank's networks in the energy sector spans across sponsors, developers across the globe, technical advisors, legal advisors, advisory firms, financial advisory firms, model auditors, EPC contractors, and O&M contractors. So we are able to facilitate connections at all stages in the project, regardless of whether we are funding at that point or not. So please feel free to reach out to me to see how we can assist you. And thank you. Thanks a lot for listening.
For such an empowering presentation. There is a lot of what you've said that aligns to what Noz said in her presentation, engaging with stakeholders in the project development phase much earlier on to determine your area of participation. But what I find also encouraging is the broad base of support services that you offer at Nedbank, and I would encourage all our delegates to be in touch with you. Our next speaker is from the Private Finance Advisory Network, Mr. Michael Sudakasa, who supports entrepreneurs in getting their projects to bankability. And I'll give him an opportunity to share with us some insights. And then I want to open the floor for as many questions as we can fit in the remaining time of the webinar. Michael, take over.
Thank you very much, Bertha. And I actually would like to ask your colleague to load the slides that I shared. I won't go through all of them, but there's some where the picture is kind of worth the proverbial 1,000 words. So I had an organization called Africa Business Group. We are an economic development firm based here in Johannesburg and active around the continent. But germane to our discussion, we are the country coordinator for the Private Finance Advisory Network in Eswatini, Lesotho, and South Africa. Next slide, please. Next. I'm going to go through these quickly because there's a few that I want to touch on right here. So what we do as PFAN, and we have a network of colleagues in the Southern Africa region. We're covered in 10 countries where we have people on the ground playing a role similar to the one that we do. But we help project developers bring their projects to financial close. And we identify colleagues like Darishni and help package those projects, take those projects to them, and work through the analysis project and making sure that one has a bankable project. The key thing about PFAN is that our services are complementary. I don't want to play the whole video, but the slides will be available to everyone, and there is embedded in this presentation a slideshow that can share with you an overview. But our services are complementary because we're supported by UNIDO and the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership. And so they provide, in essence, the contractual framework for us who are playing the role as advisors. And the aim of this initiative is really to help create more bankable, clean energy and climate-related projects, and to bring those projects to financial close. Next slide. Next. This is what we're been created to really fill, this missing middle between those institutions that have capital, such as Nedbank, and the growing number of stakeholders who'd like to develop projects in the climate and clean energy space. In the past, the lament by the financiers was it was difficult to identify bankable projects, well-packaged, well-presented projects with strong financials. The stakeholders have the right experience and capacity. At the same time, those who were developing projects lamented that they couldn't find access to capital, that they had a good project, but the stakeholders who were in the financial sector had either turned them down or they just didn't even know where to start. So PFAN was established in 2006 to really remedy this situation. Next slide. Next slide. And again, this is just a recap of the core services. So assessment of investment potential, I think that's a key one, that when you do take your project to a financier, you've had someone actually look at it and say, I have a checklist as well, and you've ticked off all of the key things that you want to have. Helping to elaborate and optimize the business model and the financing structure that the project developer is putting forth. Assistance in preparation and finalization of the project deliverable documents. So this can be your business plan, your feasibility study report, a technical study report, and your financial model. Identification of potential investors and financiers. Introduction to those investors. The one thing that PFAN has done over the last decade plus is amass a strong Rolodex of players who are financing these projects. Also investment facilitation, so helping structure and negotiate deals with investors to reach financial close. Next slide, please. So the way that we operate is you submit your proposal through our portal, pfan.net. And it's an open-ended, we have an open-ended call for proposals. Periodically, we will set a date because what we try and do is on a quarterly basis, amass a pool of projects, then evaluate those projects, and then start that process over again. The one thing that I'll say is that the determination of which projects are chosen is not made by ourselves as country managers, for example. It's made by an evaluative team that sits at PFAN's headquarters. Once you are approved, though, we provide the business coaching, we help take you through financial close, provide at different times, if necessary, tipping point technical assistance, and then also help, as I mentioned, make investor introductions. Next slide. Next slide. Actually, stay here for a second, because one of the key aspects of, can you just go back to the last slide? One of the key aspects of PFAN's focus in the last 2 years has been on ensuring that we have a strong gender lens through which we accept projects. And that really, the next slide before this, covers 4 areas. We are looking, as I mentioned, for female project developers. Before this, we're also looking as well for projects where women are in leadership positions in the company and the organization. The third area that we're looking for are projects where women are involved, or women-owned companies are involved in the supply chain of the beneficiary company. And then lastly, it's where women are beneficiaries of whatever the initiative is. So there are really 4 aspects of having a gender focus that we put all the projects that come through that lens, and we try and increasingly are focused on selecting projects that have a gender impact component. Next slide. We can keep going. In short, just while we're going through, keep going. We've to date funded around 155 projects worth roughly $2 billion. And when I say funded, meaning help get to financial close. At this juncture, PFAN itself is not a financing institution. It's really like either an accelerator or a corporate financier that is subsidized to help the companies that we're seeking to support. Next slide. This is another one that I think is useful. So we try and have a time-bound relationship with the companies that are seeking PFAN support. So we work, once you've been selected, to help develop an action plan. Then we try and develop a project development plan, which will show how will we support your project. And again, all those documents that I mentioned that you're trying to put together over a 3 to 6 month period. The project promoter is still responsible for doing the work, but we will work closely with them. I'm mentioning that because there's sometimes a misgiving that I'm just going to give my project to PFAN and those colleagues are going to turn it into the bankable project. That's not the issue. The way that we want to work is to make sure that the person and persons, plural, who are driving the project have the capacity to also talk anyone through their project, and so they understand it, but we help improve it. Then the last component of this is the investment facilitation. So this is the 3 stages. I'll stop here again. So one thing about the PFAN relationship that I think is key is that you get out of it as much as you put into it. And so if again, you really are the owner of your project, and your desire to improve it is how you will actually extract from the coaches that work with you the best that they have to give. Communication and cooperation are key between the advisors and the project developers. And again, as I said, you know your project the best. And so what we're trying to do is enhance the project developer's capacity to articulate their project to potential funders. The business plan, the financial model, and the investor presentation are your key tangible instruments that you want to share. So we want to make sure that those are put together very well, because those almost are like business cards for your business. So when you don't have a chance to orally present your project, those documents should speak volumes of what you're trying to do. Next. Next. Again, pfan.net is our portal platform. A key thing is that we're technology neutral. The project sweet spot for PFAN for many years was $1 million US. And what we've realized is that that can actually be a good sized project in the South African context where we operate in Rand. And so there was a decision made some years back to start looking at what are called micro projects, projects less than $1 million. But the sweet spot is really between $1 million and $50 million. So the embedded generation, which has been talked about quite a bit today, expansion to 100 megawatts falls very neatly into the area where PFAN is quite interested. Next slide. This is also another key slide in this presentation, because often when we talk about climate and we talk about clean energy, our thinking is quite narrow. In the PFAN context, there's a broad array of projects where we would look at them. So whether it's in agriculture, the cooling sector, energy efficiency, tourism, urban resilience, rural electrification, water and sanitation, waste treatment, climate adaptation, clean technology. These are just some of the areas that we will look at in terms of projects. And so the reason that I definitely would like everyone to be able to spend some time either at the pfan.net website or looking at this presentation is that there is a diverse group of projects that you can develop and bring forward beyond just the conversations about REAP. This is also a key one. We're looking for projects that are technically viable, that have an experienced management team. And some of my colleagues on the dais have talked about partnering with others who may have more experience than you do. So it doesn't mean that you can't pursue a project, but it does mean that you do want to have someone on your team or be part of someone else's team where they are quite experienced. I mentioned to you that we have a gender impact. We also have a development impact metrics that we want to know, how is this project going to support the community where the project developers are. There has to be a climate impact. So the whole purpose of setting up PFAN in 2006 was to initially focus on mitigation, climate mitigation, and then over the years, we've started looking more at climate adaptation, but there has to be that climate nexus. Also, there should be growth potential. The idea is that the funds that come through the support of PFAN create catalytic growth in the organization. And then lastly, there has to be a commercial viability. So the one thing that we don't do at this juncture is work with not-for-profit organizations. We work with commercial organizations. They can be startup. So we have funded greenfield projects and scale up. And we do focus our work mostly in the least developed countries, including some of the middle income countries. Next slide. Next. Thank you. And I went through that quite quickly, but I thought it was important, rather than just chatting with you broadly about PFAN, to allow colleagues to have a good sense of who the organization is. As I mentioned on the website and in this slide, there's a short video to make it quite clear. We're available and actively looking for women involved in all of those sectors that I mentioned to see how optimally we can help them pursue their projects. The one thing I would add is that there's strength in numbers. What we found is that many smaller enterprises start off with just one person, and in the energy sector and the climate sector, is very difficult to pursue a project all by oneself. It's hard to have all the skill sets that you need, to have the time. And so we definitely encourage people to think about forming companies that have multiple stakeholders. So you have a team. Just that alone gives more confidence to a financier that you will actually be able to hit the financial milestones that you set through your business.
Thank you so much, Michael. I would like just, before we remove your presentation, I would like to, for Tawela to please go back a couple of slides to the slide where you speak about technical viability, commercial viability, and other areas that are necessary for PFAN to take on exactly this particular slide. I want to say just to remind all delegates, especially those that have been with us from the beginning of the webinar, you have now heard from four parties, four very diverse different parties that have shared the following: support to help you develop your project. Sis Elizabeth from DMRE said she had developers on standby that will be able to look at your project and look at its weakness and strengths and be able to help you reach that technical viability. And the details of that, before I overpromise what they can deliver, is available on their website, and you will get more information as you engage with them to secure the support. You heard from Sis Noz from GE, who spoke about the inclusion program that GE has. for enterprise development, for startup companies that are interested to participate in the value chain of gas, but also to participate, to partner with OEMs for energy projects. So that's another route to secure support. She also emphasized that it's important for you to have the right passion. It's important for you to find a niche and to demonstrate commitment. Then we also had from Derishni, who spoke about the kind of support that Nedbank offers. And you can see the complementary elements between PFAN and Nedbank when Michael kept on emphasizing the collaborative relationship that they have with Nedbank as a financier and how they help entrepreneurs get their projects to a point where a Nedbank will find the entrepreneur and their project worthy of finance. We've also had from Dr. Jonathan, who spoke about compliance when you are bidding for projects, how you should get your documentation correct, how you should submit your documentation on time, how you should articulate your value proposition such that it's not a repeat of what is in the bid, but it actually communicates your value to your potential client. This is where the crux of the matter is. Michael has just concluded by emphasizing the need to have a team, a credible team that has a diverse range of skills that are relevant to the project that you are developing, so that their company, financiers, and other stakeholders in the industry, when they evaluate your project and your company, they can be assured that you've got the requisite skills and you've got the requisite governance structures that they can trust you with the finance. I want to open the floor for questions. And if you wish to speak, just unmute yourself and raise your question. We've got about 12 minutes or about 14 minutes to the webinar, and I would like to use this for the delegates to engage our speakers. I personally have learned a lot from this webinar, and I am gearing myself up to access their support that has been communicated. We've got 2 questions already on the platform. One says, could we slide on the project assessment? Could we slide, or do you want to see the slide, or do you want to have the slide? The presentations in full are going to be published on our website. When you visit www.aweep.africa, you go to the webinar series, you will find this 2021 webinar series with all the presentations that have been delivered. We'll also have a link to the fully recorded webinar so that you can download the presentation and listen to the particular presenter so that you can interpret the content with ease. Do you also assist in obtaining seed funding, or is it more a series of A and B? Michael, do you want to take that question?
Sure.
It says, do you also assist in obtaining seed funding?
So that is broad, and it depends on what the project area is. So if you're a aspiring project developer, let's say for the REAP program, the challenge may be you're going into a tender process, which you may or may not win. And so what we which means that we also look at our projects from a commercial viability standpoint. If you're just pitching, so to speak, there's not a business there yet. So we could have a conversation, though, if you said, well, we have the potential to have contracts with others in the C&I space, corporate industry. You're going to actually help someone with an embedded generation project. You're the only supplier, and you need seed capital for that. Yes, we could look at that, because now you have an off-taker, so to speak. You have a client. But if you're in any of the processes where multiple stakeholders are bidding, it becomes much harder. One of the things that I'll just close with on that with Bertha that we've talked about is actually having a session just to help people figure out exactly where they may fit and what other resources are available. So there are accelerators and there are incubators. that will work with you to a point where you actually have a company, you have, your post revenue, you're earning something, and then you're more likely to be eligible, because PFAN is also competitive. So you'll submit your project and someone will submit one where they've been working on it 3 or 4 years and now they're trying to scale. Most likely the project scaling is going to get the support, but we don't want to leave, particularly because of our gender focus, women in energy behind. So we're trying to figure out some ways that we can provide supplementary support so that they can get to the point where they can get PFAN support.
Fantastic. While we wait for other questions to come through, I'm going to ask Biotech to quickly run the last poll of the afternoon. And I still encourage you to please load your questions on the Q&A platform. But here is a poll. The first question says, do you now understand the opportunities in the gas market? And it's in reference to the GE presentation. And all you need to do is to click either yes or no. The second question is, do you now understand the pitfalls you need to look out for as you submit your proposals? And this is in reference to Dr. Jonathan's supply chain compliance presentation. And you can also answer yes or no. And then, do you now understand how Nedbank supports SMMEs in energy? And for that, you can also click yes or no on your screen. And these are the last questions that we have. I do encourage you not to stop here, but we still have our speakers, all of our speakers on the call. They are ready to answer your very specific questions based on what you were able to understand from their presentations this afternoon. Right, while we wait for questions to come through, maybe I can just ask one question. I think it follows on what Michael has concluded by saying. So if I have a project and it's not fully developed, but I have an off-taker who has expressed interest, what we're also finding is, we're finding that there are entrepreneurs that have land and they are pursuing a solar plant for the land. And they've got a developer who's interested, but nothing has been technically designed and no feasibility study of the land has been performed, but they've got an expression of interest from their local utility that says, we would be interested to work with you. At that level, would you be able to provide such an entrepreneur with support?
At that level, and here's where there's a challenge, we would probably still have a few more areas to focus on. So one thing is our municipalities, although we have a number of them, many of them are not creditworthy on their own. So they need a guarantee from a project standpoint, project finance standpoint. So when you say bankability, you're talking about actually having a creditworthy off-taker that is purchasing. So that is really what you would need. So if you came and you said, we're working with X municipality, and either they have a guarantor, federal government, or from a development partner, some of the development finance institutions are standing looking to step into that breach, then yes, because you have the pieces of the project that are closer. But more likely, I would try and say to them, is there a larger developer who might play a role in this project to provide that seed capital that you need to move the project across? Because sometimes, I mean, that can be R1 million just in project development expenses. And most often a smaller developer may struggle to have that capital. And again, from a PFAN standpoint, what we're trying to do, at least in the South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini standpoint, is identify the stair step of capital that's available to support project development. There is, and I'll mention this, I'm not sure if Nedbank does that, but I know we've spoken to IDC And IDC actually has pools of capital to help with the feasibility study. So we would try and channel you in that direction.
Fantastic. That then means that I think the greatest challenge that we have seen with a lot of entrepreneurs is finding the seed capital that helps develop a project up to a point where they've got a tariff that they can sell to an off-taker. It's very rare that an off-taker is present without knowing how much they would buy the electron for. And this, what you have just said, is very encouraging because it supports the narrative that we have gained throughout the webinar that connect with ecosystem players as much as possible to access the support that you need to build your project, such that when you approach a PFAN, you at least have some parts of the project in place, and PFAN will be able to direct you for further support up to a point where your project is bankable. Bankability has got a number of areas, as he has said. It's either your off-taker is credit worthy, meaning that they would be able to pay for the capacity they've signed up for regularly on time for the duration of the power purchase agreement. Otherwise, if you have a partner who is a project developer that has a stronger balance sheet, they would then contribute to the expenses of developing that project up to a point where it's bankable and attractive to a financier. Darishni, do you have any additional thoughts to the conversation?
Yeah, no, thanks, Bertha. So I just wanted to add, onto that. So when it comes to seed funding and development funding of the projects, it's largely, it's very much a developer and it's a shareholder risk. Commercial banks find it difficult to take on that risk because, as Michael had said, you're not sure if the project will be successful. If it's bidding, there's other bidders that are bidding as well. You mentioned IDC, Michael, and I just want to say that some of the DFIs do really have a mandate for this. It's in a part of the KPIs and may be able to provide developmental funding. It's a bit more difficult for the commercial banks to do so. But, and I stressed it in my presentation, and I think many of the speakers did stress it as well. It's quite important to partner with somebody with the balance sheet for the reasons that you mentioned, but besides just taking on some of the costs, sometimes a bigger developer can lend their balance sheet to help you get funding as well. Something that we've seen if there's a partnership in place. So that I just wanted to add that part.
Great stuff. We also have a question. Thanks, Darishni, for that. We have a question that says, does Nedbank finance round A and B?
Sorry, can you provide more
It
color
says,
to that?
Yeah. Actually, unfortunately, it's an anonymous attendee. Maybe if you'd like to just expand a little bit, is this to do with seed funding series A and B? Just so that we understand your acronym and we don't confuse what your question is. I'll just wait for the attendee to either type a fuller question on that.
Okay, right. But to so to answer the question on the seed funding, so Nedbank doesn't do seed funding. We can, if there's a strong balance sheet and offer, then we can consider it. We don't take on project risk. We'd have to take on balance sheet risk. But I do think that the DFIs are very well placed for something like this.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, as best as you can. We will be able to provide more answers as we load our presentations. We are left with 2 minutes. I just want to take this last 2 minutes to thank our speakers that have invested their time, their expertise to share with us content that is so needed when we talk about access to market and access to networks and access to information. This is what we have. And I'm so grateful that our speakers have invested their time to come and share with us such important market information. I would encourage you to watch out for our next webinar, which will take place in July. It will take place on the 20th of July. I just want to confirm the date, where we are going to showcase, indeed, 20th of July, we are showcasing 12 industry associations in energy that support women and entrepreneurs and youth and people living with disabilities in the energy space. So watch out for that. Have a wonderful afternoon, morning, and evening from wherever you dialed from. We appreciated having you on the call and hope you enjoyed our conversation. Thank you and goodbye.